Cohen from 1 Monroe Drive, supervisor, currently the chair of the supervisor. Been in the position as a supervisor since spring of 2009 when I think at that point Bob Elders, who's also here, he's our senior supervisor. He has worked through the 2008 presidential primary and election, so he has a corporate knowledge of how many, at least without going to Christine Finance, of what it takes to ensure that the voters come back to the next election because it goes smooth enough that they're not totally dissatisfied with what's being run. So that's a little background of who I am. So first time through, the current budget year was put together with the previous town administrator and a new town clerk. And I know when I came on board as a supervisor, first thing I was totally amazed when my stipend check showed up in the mail because I thought I just had an elected position, much like my voluntary chairman positions, that there's never any, you do it for the good of the town. So there was money that came out of somewhere to give a stipend, find out that the supervisors all get a $600 stipend for what I didn't realize was the many hours that we put in throughout the year. And I didn't realize that we'd all be using our home computers to update the database because that's the only way you can update the state database and scan in elections or else come to the town hall. And so there's a lot of stuff. It's been a learning curve. Same with the 10-year purge that, heard about it, but again, didn't realize, oops, wait a minute, did anybody budget for that postage for the printing? As cheap as we got it done, thanks to Evelyn bulk mail and everything else, it still costs $800, which is a bargain. But now we're at the dilemma. We got together, the board got together, because we looked ahead to January and said, oops, thank goodness January, but we've got a primary. And I remember 2008 coming into the voting, into the election area and seeing queue areas for new registrants and saying, I was glad I was registered. I went right over and checked my name and went back to my car that was over by Farmer Road at 6 a.m. But it takes a lot of things. Our first meeting, it was a matter of just getting to know each other and the point of, well, we need to hire some more people. It's like, well, there's no money. You have to get volunteers to work in the polls. And I said, I and the other supervisors said, you can't have paid poll workers and then volunteer poll workers. Ain't gonna work. Unless we were, we could. I mean, maybe we don't pay anybody to work the polls, but we weren't there. So we're currently at the point, my years of being involved in the town, I've learned that Christine Such is a great resource when you're talking money. And so we've had some dialogue, and I say, Christine, I know there's, the budget got reworked, numbers got moved to get into the current budget from the tax clerk to the town clerk, and, the number was around $1,200, very conservative for January. It might be, that's where we haven't arrived at that final number, but it seems that we didn't even need. It was more, the meeting was set up to come here, but it seems that we didn't even need to come to the town council because I think there may be money in the budget within the line items to get shuffled around and not cause any fault to cover this year's election. Fortunately, Friday's the deadline to get the budget input into Christine for the next budget year, and that's where I'm concurring with the idea of there's three parties to make the election go good or bad. If it goes bad or if it goes good, we all get equal credit. We're all elected, there is no one person over it. And it's frustrating when you get together when somebody holds the purse strings and says, I'm not paying for it. Not to say she did, but when you're all trying to do something and, he who has the money has the power, so to speak.
Or does not have
if you're not,
the money.
or does not have the money or is willing to go get the money. So that's a little bit about where we're at. So, I think I've...
And you don't have a budget number for us, that's part of your responsibilities.
Well, I know from the supervisor, the checklist, we looked at, we needed 4 poll workers, and I think when I ran the number, it was about $750. If we looked at a 14-hour shift period at $10 an hour.
So we got $1,200 on the table, and then you're looking at another $700-800?
No, that was part, it was
No, that
700
was-
for the purge and then another, so it's more like $1,400 to $1,500.
Yeah, but I think I've got money in my budget that I can cover
Some of it, okay, then you're gonna get us a number, correct?
It's current budget.
Just so we're clear, you mentioned budget. Are you talking 2012, 2011, 2012? Or are you talking current expenditures?
I thought we were talking, I got the impression you're looking for an adjustment of the current year.
We can't adjust the budget for the current year.
No, but you're looking for, you need some additional monies.
Well, I'm not even sure I'm willing to answer that question because I don't know what's in the budget just yet
Okay.
for this year, and I don't know what's been spent and what needs to be spent. So it could be that those items designated strictly for election and town meeting purposes comes in under budget. I just don't know.
Okay.
And, you know, we're not looking to create a problem that isn't there, but we want to make you aware that we're shooting in the dark a little bit. And I don't mind putting it just that way.
And we appreciate that, and we want to help. And questions?
Just so for this year that we're currently in, you'll come back if needed, working with Dr. Schenkel. For next year's budget, we'll be looking at some type of change, whether it's broken down into 3 aspects or whatever. Again, you'll be working with Dr. Schenkel. Question I have for the supervisor, the checklist. Another aspect that you're required to do, which I think is just your responsibility, and your other 2 is the redistricting. How is that going?
Again, redistricting, I've done some research, you know, and as Don said, there is no playbook. You know, it's pretty much by, fortunately, I called Brian Williams up, who was involved as a supervisor back when the redistricting was done before. You know, what's in the charter is what's required for redistricting. It just says that the supervisors will do it, there will be a public hearing. There's not hard times other than when the census data is available, that I just recently, within the last 2 weeks, found out that the census data is available. It's just a matter of getting it in the, you know, getting in the format and then working with the supervisors to, again, put in the time to look at the data, come up with a recommendation and the process.
But my understanding is the process of redistricting begins with the supervisor, the checklist, is that correct?
It begins and ends with us, that
Right.
we own the process to do the
Right.
redistricting.
If I, just 2 quick follow-ups. Will the requirements of whenever it's required to be done, will that be before the presidential primary, or will that be further on in the year?
My guess for a finality of it, it'll probably be after January, before we're at the point for a public hearing. Pete says we need to get it out there quick enough, so by the time we come around for council, you know, people to run where we need the districts or wards within the town identified, that we probably got that.
So it will be done at least for the May meeting? Okay.
That's what my personal goal is to get it in place well, you know, soon enough so people could know to register, the impact on current council.
And just one more suggestion from cautionary or something. I know it requires 1 public hearing, but more, whenever possible, more education on you have a district change, the better, because I think there was some confusion last go-around, 10 years ago, of people didn't know what district you are, and it caused a little frustration. So the more education, the better would be on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions? I assume then you are going to come up with a recommendation, meeting with these ladies and gentlemen for subsequent meetings, is that correct? Both in terms of an
We'll see what
adjustment?
they need. I mean, I don't see the kind of money they're talking about as being a problem. Christine's gonna talk about some places where we're gonna have some savings, so.
Yep, okay, thank you.
I'd just like to point out that, again, on this budget report that I'm looking at for appropriations for 2010-11, which is smack dab in the middle, I would assume, from 08 to 12. The appropriated budget was $18,308. And that includes $500 for checklist, $13,040 for town meeting, $500 for special town meeting, and then $4268 for new equipment. So I believe those would be the line items you may be
No, the 42, I think you're looking at wrong number, Nancy, because the 42 whatever
16.
was turned back to the town because I did not invest in more voting booths.
All I'm saying, I was only pointing out that an appropriation was set aside for 2010, 2011, 18,000.
Oh, 2010, 2011, yes,
2010. All I'm saying
okay.
is the appropriation for some reason, for whatever it's worth, the kind of dollars that was put aside for elections,
Right.
and the line items that Mr. Riley's talking about, was 18,308. So when we're talking 1,200 and 1,400, it's not, it's
Well,
closer to 20.
but like you said, I'm not sure how much is in there now. I mean, how much.
There's nothing in there now, because it was a shell game. It was moved from tax collector to town clerk to, it's all over, so.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to the recommendations. And thank you all for a smooth and pleasurable election process to all of you.
We are certainly planning it that way.
It's always been that way.
I like the chances.
I have one more question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but at the last meeting, I believe there was some discussion the council had wanted to have with the moderator about how the town meeting, I don't even know how.
It was
yeah,
moving
how
the
town
moving the
meeting
question,
would
I
be
think.
conducted and some
Yes.
suggestions. So, it was not something that I was passionate about, but I believe many of my other counselors did seem quite passionate about, and here he is. So I would just recommend that those questions you had, specifically, if recollection is correct, had to do with calling the question. This may be the time you want to at least put your concern or your suggestion out there and have those
Good
discussions.
suggestion.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, my concern in regards with this body, in regards to call to question, in regards to stifling debate. The question at the town meeting would be, I guess what it comes down to is, and say for the budget committee, we adopt Robert's rules. Robert's rules is clear on the subject. In this forum, we have the ability in which to tailor what we use and how we use it, when we use it. In regards to the annual town meeting, I guess the question is, if someone calls to question, is it a possibility to allow the body to vote in the majority to continue debate or continue discussion?
That's a good question, Todd. I'm not sure I'm prepared to answer that question right now. I'm not trying to delay the issue. I know that was an issue the last deliberative session, and I can only anticipate that it'll be the same issue. I think what I'd like to do is just give it some thought and then come back to you folks and decide or explain how I think we ought to proceed and go from there. The deliberative session there are statutes around that, and I want to make sure that whatever it is we do is within the statutes.
Well,
Yes.
and funny enough, I wasn't going to ask that question either tonight, but since it's been brought up, I can wait for the answer. I think I want it at least to be out there, so to mull it over, because there was concern last year when it was called and it stopped debate, and there's people in line who want to speak, and I'm about letting people speak, and the fact of the matter is, if someone's sitting in line, that's the only opportunity where citizens get to talk about the things on the warrant and such, so I want to give them the ability in which to talk about whatever they want to talk about, if it's about the subject matter, I guess. I'd be interested in understanding what you come up with.
Well, I think that's one issue that certainly needs to be at least thought about. The second issue is understanding what the deliberative session really is.
Yeah.
And I sensed at the last deliberative session that there were folks who did not understand what exactly the process was. So we have some homework to do, and perhaps some information to kick out to the community to make sure that when folks